Hi, I'm with psychologist Mr. Bob Ditter in his Boston office, and I'm going to be asking him a few questions about bipolar disorder. Hello, Bob? How's
Hello.
it going?
Good.
Without further ado, my first question. When on average does bipolar disorder usually manifest itself?
So we used to think that bipolar disease, also called manic depressive illness, first manifested itself a couple of different times of onset. One is sort of in the mid-teens, around 15, 16, 17, just a little bit after puberty. And the other one was sometimes in the early to mid-20s. What we're realizing now is that there's some kids who actually show signs of bipolar illness in childhood. Who have kind of erratic moods, kind of mood swings, which is kind of a precursor to manic depressive illness.
Interesting. So, next question now. Are all people with bipolar disorder violent or suicidal?
No, actually, there's different degrees of bipolar illness. So some people can just be manic. Some people can be what we call hypomanic, which means just a little bit below the sort of out and out manic stages of manic depressive illness. Some people can be stuck in depression. Sometimes we don't find out that people have a chemical imbalance, which is what manic depressive illness is, until we treat them. For example, if we treated somebody who was depressed, we treated them with antidepressants, and then they became manic, we realized, oh, we basically kicked them out of their balance, and they're not just depressed, they're actually manic depressive, and we have to balance the mania then. So people can have various degrees of manic depressive illness. Some people can have such high swings of moods that they feel out of control. They feel their lives don't work. They're dysfunctional, basically. People sometimes who go into the manic stages where they can be, say, mean or abusive, then don't remember it or feel bad about it later, but feel a hopelessness about being out of control. So I would say that only people who are on the outer edges, who have the sort of most exacerbated,
Unstable.
yeah, the most exacerbated or extreme cases of manic depressive illness might be suicidal or might be homicidal or violent. The other thing is that, with treatment, and treatment includes not just medication, but some other things as well, like learning how to manage the illness, learning how to look for the signs of it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
People get a sense of hopefulness again, and then I think that's what keeps them from feeling at least suicidal.
Good to know. Good to know. So, next question. This is kind of leading back to where you started, sort of, so to speak. Are medications always effective?
Well, medication is a complicated picture. The most effective treatment for manic depressive illness is lithium carbonate, which is a very difficult medication to be on. First of all, people tend to get dehydrated on it. I've seen children, for example, or say older kids who've been on lithium carbonate and they need to drink water all the time. I think it's important when people are on that to have a lot of exercise, so you have to, and that has to obviously all be followed by a physician. But when it does work, it can be extremely effective in evening out the mood swings, so that you take the highs and the lows and then kind of compress it a little bit. The problem with medication, the biggest problem with medication, aside from the side effects, is compliance. A lot of people on manic depressive illness stop taking their medication because, first of all, they start getting positive results, so they think, oh, I'm better, I don't need this anymore. Most people don't like the idea of taking medication. I think a lot of people have, I think a lot of people who take medication feel it robs them of their autonomy, sort of like, oh, the pill's running my life, I'm not running my life.
Yeah, and that can lead to paranoia
Yeah,
in many cases, I've heard.
yes, and I think it can also lead to people just stopping their medication. The other motive behind people stopping their medication is many people who are manic depressive feel that they lose their sense of feeling or the color in their life, or their creativity. So somebody who, say, may be a musician or an artist or a writer who's in a manic stage may feel more productive or feel more creative, and when they take the medication, there's a sense that they've lost that, so they stop taking it. So compliance is the number one issue.
Yes. Should I ask the final question?
Sure.
Okay. So, when can being in the zone be isolated from hypomania?
So hypomania is very different in that when you're in the zone, which is what people refer to as high performance modality, people in high performance are focused, they're single-minded, they're calm, there's a sort of sense of calm because what they're doing is so focused, whereas that they're very productive, whereas hypomania is not so focused, it's not calm, so there's this sense of dashing from one thing to the other, or a lack of organization or a lack of purpose to what people are doing. So people may look at first like they're being productive, but then when you take a closer look, you realize that hypomania really isn't as organized, it's not as focused, it's not as productive, whereas being in the zone is a single purpose. It's like, if you're playing basketball and you're in the zone, or you're writing.
You can't focus on anything else.
Yeah, you're basically
determined.
You're so present in what you're doing that everything else in the world drops away. Whereas in hypomania, you're not really that present. You're all over the place. You may be focusing on this thing, and then you're focusing on another thing, and then you're focusing on a third thing. So your focus isn't as good, your sense of calm isn't as good, your sense of being personally present isn't as good.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this has been some very useful information. Thank you very much, Mr. Ditter.
You're welcome.
Alright, Stephen Husser signing off.